Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with a final update to my ultimate palette battle. So I did this series, well, I started off as just like a typical kind of battle throughout my collection. Then I ended up doing a tournament out of it. So I've been doing a tournament where I narrow down my palettes. Each round I obviously battle two palettes against each other and only one can proceed. So it's kind of like if I could only keep one of these two, which one would it be? And ultimately, I am going to end up with just one palette, which is going to be my top palette in my collection. And currently, we're standing at 7 palettes remaining, and those are the ones I'm going to tackle today. So I am currently on round 4, and I believe this is the 7th video in the series. And today, I'm going to go through those 7 palettes. Those are going to be narrowed down to 4, and then I'm going to do those 2, narrow down to 2, and then one last round with those last 2 palettes. You should see which one of those I would keep. So I'm excited to get to the end of the series. I know this is going to be really, really difficult because these are obviously some of my top favorite palettes. But I'm going to jump into the video here. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and randomize. I have my wheel right here with my 7 palettes. So let's see how it goes. We have Utopian Dream from Pat McGrath versus... oh god, I'm nervous. Oh, the Biba palette from Natasha Nona. Let me get those two. Okay, so here we have those 2 palettes. We have the Utopian Dreams from Pat McGrath versus the Biba palette from Natasha Nona. And this is when I have to start thinking about, like, do I want to consider this like which one is my favorite palette, or more like if I only had one of these palettes, which one would I have? Because I think if I was thinking more like necessities and like essential stuff like that, this one would make more sense to keep because it has a big array of mattes, a couple of shimmers, and I compared this one with my singles. Really, really stunning. But this one here has some beautiful shades, some of my favorite special shades from Pat McGrath. It has some beautiful mattes that I really, really love as well. And if I'm picking my favorite out of the two, I think I'm going to pick the Utopian Dreams. And I think that's how I'm going to go about it, because if I just kept like the more like essential palette or more like basic palette that I could use, like if I only had one palette in my collection, I feel like I would end up with something like more boring like this. But I actually want to see which one is my favorite. So I'm going to stick with the one that I prefer. So the Utopian Dream is going to win this round. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. Let me pick 2 more palettes. The Child from Colourpop versus the Tiny Marvels palette from Sydney Grace. So here we have those 2. This one is a really, really difficult one. We have the Child palette from Colourpop, which looks like this. And then the Tiny Marvels palette from Sydney Grace that looks like this. So obviously I love both these palettes. They have made it so far in the rounds. So I do love both of these. I absolutely adore the Child palette. I love the type of greens that are in here. I feel like every single look I make with this palette I absolutely adore. And it's just such a nice color story, quality, all of that kind of good stuff. However, the quality in this one is way, way better. The color story is also amazing, and it's just a beautiful palette. I think when it comes to... it's hard because I feel like with this one, it's like a no-brainer. I love every look that I make with this palette. It's so, so nice. Sometimes with this one, I have to think a little bit harder, and it's not always like... I don't always love the look I do with this one, but sometimes I absolutely adore the looks as well. But it's a little bit more like fiddly. But there's also way more variety in this palette. I think I'm going to let the Tiny Marvels palette win, purely because of quality, versatility, and because I love both palettes, but I feel like I can do more with this palette, which is why I'm going to let this win. And unfortunately, the Child palette is being eliminated. Okay, so I have 3 palettes left to go. 2 of them are going to be randomized. And then the one palette that is alone standing at the end is automatically going to go forward to the next round. I did something similar in previous rounds too, but it's just, I think it makes more sense when I have uneven amount of palettes, just because I want to give everything an equal chance. So let me see what the last 2 palettes I'm going to battle out for this round is going to be. Bronze Seduction palette from Pat McGrath, and that's going to be against one of my Natasha Denona palettes, either the gold or the face palette. And it's the face palette. And here we have those two palettes. We have the Bronze Seduction palette from Pat McGrath right here. And then here we have the Natasha Denona Glam face palette in light. With this palette, I'm only really considering the eyeshadows. I mean, obviously it's a bonus that it has face shades, but it's also like I can't really compare it because none of my other palettes have that. So it's mainly the eyeshadows. This palette has made it quite far because it's just a basic, really nice everyday color story. I can make some really beautiful looks with it. And I also feel like the shimmers in here are absolutely stunning, and the tones of the mattes are exactly what I love. So I do like this palette a lot. However, this one has, again, more variety. You can go light, you can go smoky, you have those special shades which are outstanding. And I've actually been playing around with this one really recently in my Big Fat Eyeshadow project because it's currently in it while I'm filming it. I'm filming this one in the end of June. I'm pre-filming a little bit. And this is one of my palettes for June. So I know that I love this one, and out of these two, it's going to be a clear winner again. It's going to be the Bronze Seduction palette, just because I know I love this one and it has so much more variety. And even though this is a nice palette, it's only 5 shades, which cannot beat this palette right here. So we have a winner, and this one is being eliminated. And then, like I said, because we didn't randomize it, we have the gold palette from Natasha Denona, and this one is going to automatically be put forward because we don't have anything to compare it to. So that is this round done. Let me prepare my wheel for the 5th round with the remaining 4 palettes, and we're going to go ahead and randomize those. So I'm back, and I have made my wheel right here with the 4 palettes. We have, again, to sum up, we have the gold palette, the Utopian Dreams, Tiny Marvels, and Bronze Seduction. So this is going to start getting really difficult, yeah, because I love all of these palettes, so it's going to be hard to narrow it down. But let me go ahead and pick the first 2 palettes. The Tiny Marvels palette versus the Bronze Seduction. So here we have those 2 palettes, and honestly, this is what I wanted to not happen, because these 2 palettes are fine, but the other 2, it's going to be such a hard thing to decide between. The last 2 palettes that I'm going to talk about in a second are probably the 2 that I would have wanted as my top 2 palettes. So it's hard, but let's go back to these 2. We have, again, the Bronze Seduction palette versus the Tiny Marvels palette, and again, very difficult. I've come to my top palettes in my collection, so it's of course going to be difficult. I love this palette. I love some of the shades in here, like the special shades, especially like this one and like the gold right here. So these 2 are like some of my absolute favorite special shades. But this palette has some beautiful shades as well, some beautiful metallic shimmers. But I do go for sparkly shades more, which this one has. This one has more variety, has some more colorful shades. It has beautiful mattes, really blendable, creamy. This one also has some high quality mattes, but obviously not as much variety. I do think, however, I'm gonna let the Bronze Seduction palette win. Yeah, I think this one is going to win, and this one is unfortunately going to be eliminated. It was really difficult, but I think that's what I'm going to have to do. So this one is being eliminated, and the Bronze Seduction is being put forward. And why not, for just the fun of it, let's randomize the last 2 palettes, although I know what it's going to be, and you guys probably do too. We have the gold palette versus the Utopian Dream. Those are going to be the last 2. And here we have those 2 palettes. And this is the hardest round yet. I don't know. I was looking at these 2 palettes, and I'm just like, it's impossible for me to choose. This one here has always been one of my absolute favorite palettes in my collection. I love the formula. The mattes are stunning. Some of the best, well, the best Natasha Denona shimmers out there. You have more neutral browns, more warm tone browns, and more kind of yellowy browns. You have the greeny golds, the more pure golds, the taupey golds, the sparkly toppers, all of that kind of good stuff. Love this palette so much. And then this one here was my first Pat McGrath palette. It is my perfect kind of color story. It has those warm, rosy tones, but again, leaning more warm and like romantic. It does have some special shades that are absolutely stunning. The top 2 shades, when I'm holding it like this, are absolutely amazing special shades. Actually, I like all of the special shades. My least favorite is probably the multichrome. The can't remember what it's called, but the multichrome that goes from pink to green. You can probably see it a little bit when I'm shifting the palette. But this palette here is so stunning. And it's hard because I love these palettes probably equally. It just depends on what kind of thing I'm into at the moment. So this one has more, again, green golds, which I am currently wearing on my eyes today. But I haven't been as into recently as I have been to these romantic tones. So it's hard because overall, I think this one would win. But where I'm standing right now, I do think this one would win, which is impossible. I think everyone expected the gold palette to win this, and so did I. At least, I mean, I did it especially. I don't know about you guys, but I thought this one would go to the end. And I mean, this is the second to last round, so it kind of has. But I think I'm gonna choose differently because I want to do a bit unexpected. And since these are kind of equal, and right now I feel like I'm leaning towards this palette, I'm gonna go with that because I can't always let this one be the top favorite, even though it is probably like my all-time favorite. My current favorite is probably this one. So the Utopian Dream goes forward. Insane. Yeah, I can't believe the gold palette is being eliminated, but again, we have come to like the end, so it's expected to some of my favorites to be eliminated from this project anyway. So we have come to the very final palettes, which are these two Pat McGrath palettes. It ended up being two Pat McGrath palettes. If I had to handpick my two favorites out of the four that were remaining, it would have been this one and the gold, which kind of tells you already which one is going to win. This one is easy for me because even though I love these palettes both, this one here is definitely more up my alley, and it did beat out my all-time favorite palette, so this one is a clear winner for me, and this one is going to be eliminated as the very last one. I do love this palette. I've said that before. I absolutely adore the shades in here, and you can create some more smoky looks, like I said, sultry looks. You can create neutral everyday looks. You can create like slightly colorful looks with some of the special shades. You can do like a lot of things with this. This one here, you can also do a lot of things with. You have more of a neutral, it's not neutral, but like a rosy mauve tone right there. You have a warmer peachier tone right there. You have a beautiful matte that isn't too deep, which for a lot of people might, be a hindrance, but for me, I like that. You have more kind of neutral everyday shimmers if you want to use those. And then you have all of those special shades, again, some more colorful shades, as well as some more neutral shades. So a lot of variety in both of these. But the undertones of the palettes are just completely different, and I way prefer these undertones, and this palette is just so stunning. There's a reason why this one was my first Pat McGrath palette. I was so lucky to get this one for my boyfriend for my birthday, my 29th birthday, I believe, 29th, 28th, I think, I don't know. But I got this one for my birthday, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But it's a reason why this one was the one that I bit the bullet with. I mean, again, I got it as a gift, but I had never asked for a Pat McGrath palette before, and I've never really thought that I would pick one up before I found my absolute perfect one, and that was this right here. So we are saying goodbye to the last palette, which is the Bronze Seduction, and we have an ultimate winner. I am so happy that this one won. It is an absolute amazing palette. I love this palette so much, and right now this is definitely like the undertones that I would like going for. I like these romantic tones. I love these like colorful but neutral. I love like a really easy crease with like a sparkly shifty shade on my lid. I absolutely love these type of shades. So for me, this is definitely one of my favorite palettes in my collection, and it's right now stands at my top favorite, obviously, because it did win this tournament. And I'm really, really pleased with that. I don't really have any regrets. The only thing, like I said, is the gold palette. But if I think about it, this one right now is more up my alley, and it's the one that I want to reach for more. So it was always going to be this palette, I guess. But yeah, that is going to be it for my tournament. Let me know which palette you thought was going to win. Did you think it was going to be this one? Did you think it was going to be the gold palette? Did you think it was going to be any of the other ones that I featured in this video? Let me know down below. Are you surprised by any of my choices? Did you expect any of the palettes to get further, maybe from this round or even any of the other rounds? let me know. I would love to hear from you. I really enjoyed doing this tournament, and I forgot to say at the introduction of this video, but it was inspired loosely by It's Just Steph. She did like a similar concept when she ranked, or she battled out her 2023 first 6 months versus last 6 month palettes, and that's where I got the inspiration from. So I have linked her down below. But yeah, I really enjoyed the series. It was so much fun, and it's quite an interesting concept, and it's also good practice to do. So I am very pleased that I did it, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it and followed along. And yeah, I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye guys!